The topic we are going to discuss today is FSMA Preventive Controls Rule, Qualified Exemption. Please note that the information provided in this module does not, and is not intended to, constitute legal advice. All available information and content are for general informational purposes only. Just a refresher here on food processing and the FSMA Preventive Controls for Human Food Rule. There are some exemptions for food processors from this regulation. First, if the processing they're doing is covered by the Produce Safety Rule, which is a very limited list. Second, if the processing is occurring in a retail food establishment. And third, if the food is being processed under a state cottage food law. Other than those situations, a food processor will be covered by the Preventive Controls for Human Food Rule. However, there are some modified requirements to the regulation for facilities that meet the farm mix type facility definition or those that meet the criteria definition of qualified facility. Today, we are focusing on these qualified facilities. There was at least some recognition that the implementation of the FSMA Preventive Controls for Human Food needed to be appropriate to the scale of the business. In the FSMA Preventive Controls for Human Food Rule, there is a provision that sets modified requirements for very small businesses. However, as a food processor, it is your responsibility to ensure that the food you are producing is safe. The number of individuals that consume your product, for example, the size of your business, is related to the risk of public health. The more people that consume a product, the higher the risk to public safety if that product is not produced in a safe manner. Also, remember that different types of foods are considered lower risk compared to others. High-risk food types, like low-acid canned foods, will always have rigorous food safety regulations that apply to their production. To help reduce some of the burden for very small businesses, the Preventive Control Rule defines the criteria for a qualified facility. These very small businesses, as defined in the regulation, are subject to modified requirements. This includes following food manufacturing practices and filing with the FDA. The qualified facility does not have to conduct the hazard analysis and implement preventive controls as defined under the rule. You can be eligible for this qualified facility designation if you meet one of these two criteria. The first is having less than $1 million in annual sales of human food. This number is adjusted based on inflation. Or have at least $500,000 in annual sales over the last 3 years and sell a majority of food directly to a qualified end user. Qualified end users are consumers, restaurants, retail food establishments in the same state, or not further than 275 miles from the facility. I know this may be a bit tough to read, but I want to refer everyone to the FDA's Qualified Facility Attestation website. Here, you can find guidance documents, instructions for submitting the Form 3942A, which we will talk about, and inflation-adjusted cutoffs for the years since 2011.